Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Bryony and I'm one half of the Indecisive Readers. Today I'm here to do the 20 best books of 2020. Now I want to preface this with a couple of things. One, I'm filming this at the end of November, so I may find that there's something that comes up in December that is my favourite book, but I don't think so. I'm just saying, I don't think December has like my top books of the year. I might be completely wrong, and if I'm completely wrong I will say in the description, but from what I think I'm gonna stick with the ones I've read so far and they will be my best books. Also, when I say the 20 best books of 2020, I don't actually mean necessarily my top 20 books. I mean I've come up with 20 categories and they are the best in those 20 categories, if that makes sense. So yeah, let's just start and see what there is. So the first one I have is the best book of the year for me, and I have chosen Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I'm holding it up like this so you can see that I do have two copies because I adored the book. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was so interesting and I just thought it was really good. Like, I rated it 4.5 stars, and I find, I don't know if you lot find the same, but sometimes the books I rate 4 stars I actually prefer to 5-star ratings, and I don't know why. And I rated this one 4.5 stars at first, but then I like upped it to 5 stars because I just couldn't stop thinking about it, and I think it's wonderful. And I love this cover. I think this cover's wonderful. I like the kind of exclusive cover, but I actually think I prefer this. I'm hoping to reread it at some point next year, hopefully early on in the year, because I'm going to get like loads of other people to read it. But very excited, thought this was wonderful and would definitely recommend this. Then my next category is best reread. So I reread a couple of books, and I reread my favourite book of last year, and I think it is like still one of my favourite books this year. But what I've actually chosen is what book has grown on me most with a reread, and for this I've chosen The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I've actually reread this twice this year. I reread it as an audiobook and then I reread it to annotate it. And as you can see, I've got like quite a lot of tabs in it, and each time I read it, like more grew on me. I learnt more about it. I thought it was more interesting. It actually went up 2 ratings and I thought it was really interesting. Absolutely adored my reread. And yeah, Samantha Shannon writes books that get better every time you read them. I'm hoping to reread the next 2 in December and January, and then I can read The Mask Fallen, but definitely this was my favourite reread. Then my next category is new to you author. I read quite a lot of new to you authors, but the biggest one I read that I have heard about before but hadn't read up until this point was V.E. Schwab. Now, the one I read by her, and I'm actually currently still reading, and I'm very frustrated that I picked it up this year because I could have just like waited until next year and it could be the best book of next year, but no, I had to pick it up in November and like confuse everything. But that is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. I'm absolutely adoring this. I'm listening to it as an audiobook. I'd actually just ordered the physical book, but I was like, I'm just gonna like listen to it because it's available from the library, and it's such a good audiobook, and it's just, oh, I love it so much. I knew I was going to like it, or I hoped I was going to like it, and I didn't expect to like it quite so much, and it's just wonderful and I'm so happy. And it could have easily been like the top one of the year, but this is definitely the best new to you author I've read. Then my biggest surprise. Now my biggest surprise was The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics by Olivia Waite. I hadn't heard of this until like May or June, and I thought, oh, it's only $1.99, I'll pick it up. It was a queer romance kind of set in like 19th 18th century Britain, and it was just so interesting, like really feminist. I liked the relationship, I liked the romance, and I was just surprised by a lot of things about it. Then the best non-fiction I have chosen was The Radium Girls by Kat Moore. I rated it 5 stars, was blown away by it, thought it was so interesting, thought it covered a topic I didn't know anything about, and I just very much enjoyed it. Thought everything it covered was really interesting, and thought it covered such a wide variety of kind of topics, and it was just horrific. It felt like it shouldn't be real, but it was, and it was very sad, and I would recommend you pick it up. Then for the best fantasy I have chosen A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne Brown. I have the Fairy Loot edition, which is really pretty. It's got green sprayed edges, the cover's really shiny. It's a young adult fantasy with a enemies to lovers romance. There were so many good things about it. I really adored it. I thought the world building in it was really interesting. I thought the story was really interesting. I thought their relationship was really good, and I'm not always invested in relationships, but it was very good. I would recommend. Then for science fiction, I didn't read a lot of science fiction, but I was really blown away by this science fiction. And this was Seven Devils by Elizabeth May and Laura Lamb. It took me a little bit of time to get in at the start, but I really enjoyed it as it went on. I picked up the normal edition and then I saw this was available for £15. And then I thought, it's pink and pretty, why wouldn't I? So Sam has my normal edition. Once he gets to it, if he gets to it, I'll probably sell it and keep this one because, I mean, why wouldn't I keep this one over the normal one? But it's just wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Very feminist, kind of quite a low-key science fiction, but I really enjoyed some of the characters in it. Then for a romance, I chose How Hard Can Love Be by Holly Bourne. This is the second one in the Spencer Club series and I haven't picked it up for a while, but I really enjoyed getting back into the world, and I didn't think I'd necessarily get invested in the romance, but I thought it was really cute. I thought the guy was really nice. You don't often see very soft guys in just general fiction, and I just appreciated seeing someone who wasn't broody and miserable and was genuinely really nice to the female character, and it made me very happy. It obviously does deal with some other important themes because it's Holly Bourne, she always does stuff like this, but I very much enjoyed the romance in it too. Then for the best classic I read, I didn't read many classics in 2020, but the best one, or one of the best ones I chose, was The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I have read work by Oscar Wilde in the past and I have really enjoyed it. I think his writing style is really funny, and out of all the classics I read, it was the one that kept me interested for the longest time, was the easiest to read. There was one chapter in the middle where nothing happened and I got immensely bored, but as a classic it was quite good. I enjoyed it. It's easy to read and I would probably pick it up again, maybe, or I wouldn't mind owning it, if that makes sense. Then for the best young adult fiction book I read, I have Meat Market by Juno Dawson. I should probably get rid of the sticker. This is about a girl who works in the modelling industry and works out that it's really not all it's made up to be, and it was just really interesting. It was such a feminist book, it was such a powerful book, I loved it so much. I don't know if I can put into words how much I loved it, but I really enjoyed it. It introduced me to Juno Dawson as an author, and I think she's a really good author. I mean, I have only read one book by her, but like I'm very much interested in reading the rest, and I thought it was really good and would definitely recommend once you've kind of read the triggers for it, because obviously it is about the modelling industry, so has some triggers. Then the best middle grade I read for Believathon and was so surprised by it. I thought I'd like it, but I didn't think I'd like it as much as I did. I was like tearing up at the end, and that is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. It was very cute. It had some twists and turns. It had like this lovely family dynamic. It had lovely friendship. It had lovely fantasy and magical creatures, and it was just really good and really heartfelt. And if I were to recommend like one middle grade book, I think this might be it, other than like my favourite as a child. Like out of the most recent middle grades, I think this might be my favourite. It also had like this tiny dragon, like Chihuahua sized dragon, who thought he was like a Rottweiler size kind of in comparison. I mean, obviously he thought he was a massive dragon and everyone else was just really giant. It was very cute and I very much enjoyed it. My favourite adult book I read in 2020 has to be This Lovely City by Louise Hare. This is a arc of it, which is why it's not the usual blue cover, but I thought it was really interesting. I wasn't expecting to like it as much. I was just given it as a kind of, you might like this is our favourite book at the moment. And I was like, okay. And it was historical fiction about the Windrush era, which I knew nothing about, and then I picked it up and it was so compelling to read. It has a kind of mystery, but it was more about friendship and people and society, and it was just really interesting. Would definitely recommend, and just it really surprised me. And then I was looking back over my Goodreads and I was like, I really like that, I'm gonna put this on this list. That makes it sound like it was forgettable, but it wasn't. I have just read 114 books and I'm halfway through another 5, so it's just I have read a lot. I have a lot to remember this year. My favourite graphic novel of this year has to be On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden. I read this back in June. It's a 500-page graphic novel that kind of explores friendship and family and science fiction a bit. But what I really liked about it was a long graphic novel. My problem with a lot of graphic novels is because they're only like 300 pages long and obviously less happens on a page, you don't get the time to get immersed in the story, but that wasn't the case in this. I absolutely adored it. I enjoyed every second I spent in the story. And also there were some pages where it kind of made use of it being a graphic novel. I'll try and like insert a picture up here, but basically there were some pages where it kind of had lots of scenes on one page, which you would have to describe normally, but to show lots of different scenes, lots of different kind of scenery and landscapes. I thought that was so clever, and it made use of the graphic novel like medium so well, and I just thought it was really effectively done. I don't currently have it because a friend is borrowing it and someone else is borrowing it, and I bought it for someone else, and it's one I keep giving out apparently. Now I can't remember what the word is, but my favourite non-bookish book, when I say non-normal book, and when I say non-normal book I mean basically a book that isn't written in like paragraphs and things, and for that I have chosen The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. This is written in verse, I think, so I think the normal one is prose. Is this verse? But basically it's like kind of poetry that doesn't rhyme, and it's got illustrations, and I think it was just really effectively done. I thought it was a really nice introduction to this kind of different medium of books. I love the illustrations. I love how like there were some black pages. I liked how that was kind of used because the black pages would kind of be about identity and things, and I just thought it was really interesting. It was very easy to read, covered a really interesting topic, and it's like a YA, so the fact it covered it was like really important, and I would definitely recommend. It was very easy to read. I think I rated it 5 stars and I really adored it. Now my next one is actually the best audiobook. So this year I kind of really started reading audiobooks, and when I started I wanted to read books specifically that were like good as audiobooks. As the year went on I just kind of was reading more normal audiobooks or audiobooks with good narrators or something, but this one was just a good audiobook, and that is Sadie by Courtney Summers. It is written in a podcast format, or half in a podcast format, so it was like made to be turned into an audiobook. This has a full cast of narrators, so every single character has a different narrator. It has sound effects, it has kind of it was very good. Like, you really need to listen to it. It had a kind of mystery element to it as well, and you're kind of following one person who's ahead and the other person who's chasing them, and you're like, but you're like, you need to follow this clue, and they go and do something else, and it's just, it was very, very good. It's quite a hard like book to listen to just because of the kind of content, but I would definitely recommend it. It's really, really interesting. Then for best sequel, I don't physically own the sequel because I listened to them from the library again as audiobooks, but as the series went on I grew to love it more. The first one, so basically the first one was The Diviners by Libba Bray, and it was alright. I wasn't blown away with it. I was a bit confused, I didn't quite follow it, and then I picked up the sequel being like, maybe I'll like it, and then I was like, oh my god, this is really good. I really, really like this. And I got a bit confused at the start because it was about 6 months between me reading this one and the next one. But as the series has gone on, I've like fallen in love, and now I've started collecting them when I've seen cheap versions. So I had this one and I had the final one, and it was very good. And I would recommend this series 100%. It's really good as a kind of like Halloweeny read because it's a bit spooky. It has gay characters, it has non-white characters, it has really interesting topics, and it has all these like magical powers, and I just really, really liked it. And yeah, the sequel has grown on me and has made me like the series more. Then for the best kind of short story or short book, I have chosen Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna Maguire. This one feels really close to my heart because it has a asexual, aromantic character, and because I identify as demisexual, I just wanted to read more characters who felt the same way or a similar sort of way to me. This was the first time I'd really read it, and I thought it was really well done. Every time I like read something I was like, yes, that's me. And it was also a really interesting story, like the fact that so much could be packed into like less than 200 pages. It could have been so much longer and still been interesting, and I wish it was, because I wish I could have like spent more time in the world. But I do have like the next 3 over there. I don't own the first one, but I'm hoping to find it. But I found the next 3 for £1, which was great. And it's also great because they're so short, I don't want to spend £15 on them. But I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the first one, and I'm hoping to find it somewhere. So the next one I have is the best recommendation, and I didn't actually get many recommendations this year, or at least not recommendations I put elsewhere, but I have for this Sandman Slim by Richard Kadri. This is, I don't know what it is. It's kind of a bit mystery, it's a bit dark, but almost a bit fantasy too, kind of Lucifer. I don't know if it's technically Lucifer, but like Lucifer the TV show. But it was really interesting. It's something way different to what I'd usually read, but Sam knows what I like to read, and so he could like successfully recommend this like out of my comfort zone book, and it was really interesting. I did enjoy it, and will maybe pick up the sequel. I'm not in a like rush to pick it up, but I did enjoy this one. Then for the best LGBTQ plus book, I have chosen You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. Much to my surprise, I only rated this one 4 stars, which really surprises me because I've like been recommending it to everyone and thought this is wonderful, this is marvellous, and I can't see why I only rated it 4 stars. Maybe I'll have to reread it, but it's one I want to own physically. I did borrow from the library, but it was wonderful. It was really cute. It was like a really heartfelt rom-com, but also it had LGBT plus characters, but that wasn't the like main thing. There was a big focus on intersectionality because the main character is female, black and queer, and it just really turned on their head all kind of stereotypical school stereotypes, tropes, prom, falling in love, and it was just really cute, and I'd recommend, and I really want to own it physically because it was marvellous, and I would like to read it again and recommend it and hand it out to everyone, but then I know I'd lose it, but it was cute. Now the final book on this list is the prettiest book, so like what with the prettiest cover. Now I do probably have a few that I could use for this, but what I have chosen to use is Ray Bearer by Jordan Ifwecker. I mean, you can see there it's really shiny, but more than that, it's also got these wonderful sprayed edges. I took a really nice picture for Instagram that I'll put up here, and it's probably like my favourite picture I've ever taken. It just matches the theme of this so well, and I really adored the book as well. I could have recommended it for fantasy, for YA, for audiobooks. The audiobook was really well done. It's like it uses a African narrator, and so she pronounces everything right, and it was just really good, and I'd recommend it if you haven't gathered that from the rest of this. So yeah, there are 20 books I would recommend. They are kind of my top 20 in those categories, and so if you're looking for kind of books within those categories, they are what I would recommend. If you've read any of these and would agree, or if you now want to pick them up, please let me know. I'd be interested to know. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you in another video. Bye!